All right, so today we're talking about something that happens behind the closed doors of the world's biggest companies, but affects all of us. It's called corporate governance. You can think of it as the rule book that's supposed to decide who's really in control in the boardroom, but when that rule book fails, well, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. So, let's pull back the curtain. Just look at these numbers for a second. This isn't just a dry statistic. This is maybe the most infamous corporate collapse in modern history. It's a shocking reminder of how a company that looked like it was on top of the world could be brought to its knees by some seriously shady accounting. Now, I know the Enron scandal might feel like ancient history to some of you, but the lessons are more relevant today than they've ever been. Because when these giants fall, it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. There's a real human cost that ripples outwards and just devastates thousands of lives. I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? How does that even happen? This isn't just a small mistake or a bad quarter. For a company that big to just disappear, it points to a complete and total breakdown in how it was being controlled and watched over. And it's not a one-off thing. Let's look at a much more recent example. Okay, fast forward to 2018 and the collapse of Carillion in the UK. This was a massive construction firm. We're talking 43,000 employees. They had huge government contracts to build things like schools and hospitals. And when they went under, it was a disaster. All those people lost their jobs. Critical projects were left half-built. And thousands of small businesses, suppliers who depended on Carillion, they never got paid. This was a failure that hit the whole community hard. So you see, these huge collapses, they're not just bad luck. They're almost always the result of a failure of leadership, a failure of accountability, and a failure of the very system that's designed to stop the people in charge from abusing their power. In fact, it was because of scandals just like Enron that regulators put together a formal system to try and prevent these disasters. That system, that's what we call corporate governance. Let's dig into what it actually is. So there's the official definition, but the key word here, the one I really want you to focus on, is controlled. This isn't just about making money. It's about creating a system of checks and balances to make sure the people running the show are truly accountable to everyone else. And this is basically what that framework looks like. You've got these core pillars holding the whole thing up. Strict codes of conduct, specialized committees that act like watchdogs, and transparent reporting so everyone can see what's going on. It's all designed for one thing: accountability. So how does this all work in the real world? Well, it really all starts inside the boardroom with a very carefully designed power struggle between two different groups, the insiders and the outsiders. Okay, so this is the fundamental split. On one side, you have the executive directors. These are your insiders, the CEO, the CFO, the folks who run the company every single day. And on the other side, you have the non-executive directors, or NEDs. Their entire job is to be the outsiders, to keep an eye on the executives, to challenge their thinking, and to bring in a completely different, independent point of view. And right there, that is the million-dollar question. It's not enough to just call someone an outsider, right? To make this whole system work, there's a super strict set of rules to make sure that a non-executive director is genuinely, truly independent and not secretly in the pocket of the management they're supposed to be watching. And this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. The rules are incredibly specific. An NED is not considered independent if they used to work there recently or if they have business deals with the company. They can't get paid with things like share options because that might make them focus on short-term stock prices. There are even rules about close family ties. And look at that last one, serving for more than 9 years. Why? Because after that long, you might get a little too cozy with the very people you're supposed to be scrutinizing. Each rule is there to cut off a potential conflict of interest at the source. Now you can imagine, a full board of directors is a busy group. They can't possibly keep an eye on everything. So to handle the most sensitive stuff, the board creates smaller, more focused watchdog committees. And you can see here how that works. The main board delegates specific powers down to these little subcommittees, like the audit committee or the remuneration committee. And here's the crucial part. To guarantee impartial oversight, these powerful committees are almost always led by those independent non-executive directors we were just talking about. So let's zoom in on two of the most important ones. First, you've got the audit committee. Think of them as the guardians of the company's financial honesty. They make sure the numbers are real and that the outside auditors are actually doing their job properly. Then you have the remuneration committee. Their job, they decide how much the top bosses get paid. They're supposed to make sure that pay is fair, but also that it's tied to real long-term success, not just a short-term gamble that could wreck the company. And this takes us right back to Carillion. One of the things that made people so angry was that executives were getting these huge paychecks and bonuses while the company was literally crumbling. So how exactly does a committee stop that? What tools do they have to prevent rewarding failure?
Well, they have two really powerful tools. They're called Maloss and Clawback. Maloss is basically a negative bonus. It lets the committee slash or even completely cancel a bonus before it ever gets paid out if things start to go wrong. But Clawback? Clawback is even tougher. That gives the company the legal right to actually go and take back money that has already been paid to an executive, say, if they find out the profits were faked. These are the real teeth of corporate governance.
Okay, so we've gone through the rules, the roles, the insiders, the outsiders, the committees, but why should anyone who doesn't sit in a boardroom care about any of this? Well, the impact is way, way broader than you might think. It's a really fair question. Is all this just an elaborate system to protect a bunch of wealthy investors? The answer is a huge, resounding no. Good governance protects this whole circle of people, what we call stakeholders. Sure, it protects the shareholders and their investment, but it also creates stable, secure jobs for employees. It makes sure that suppliers can trust they're going to get paid on time. And it pushes the company to be a good citizen that focuses on sustainable, long-term success, which benefits the entire community. And that, ultimately, is the entire point of all of this. It's not just a bunch of boring rules. It's a framework designed to build trust. Trust between a company and everyone it interacts with. And that trust is what creates real value that actually lasts. Which leaves us with one final big question. The rulebook we've been talking about was built on the lessons from past disasters. But our world is changing so fast. New technology, new risks, new expectations for how companies should behave. So we have to ask, is this system we have now strong enough to prevent the scandals of tomorrow? That's something for all of us to think about.